Well, good morning, everybody. I'm Senator Chuck Schumer, Democratic Senator from New York and the Majority Leader of the Democratic majority in the Senate. And I'm so pleased to be joined by our new, already successful Transportation Secretary. We call him Mayor Pete out of affection because he was a mayor. And now he has a very much larger jurisdiction. And we're all so glad that he's in that position because he will really shake up transportation in a very positive way in America. So Mayor Pete, thanks for joining us.
Thanks very much, Leader Schumer, and I'm so thrilled to be part of this conversation and thrilled with the opportunity to work on U.S. transportation infrastructure. I don't think there's ever been a more dynamic or exciting time to be working on this.
I agree. And, you know, since I'm calling you Mayor Pete, you don't have to call me Mr. Leader. Call me Chuck, and we'll be on a nice, friendly basis.
All right.
Which is, I'm from Brooklyn. I still like that informality, you know. So why don't we begin by just talking about, we're talking here about electric vehicles and our need to move forward in a positive direction. And so I think the first thing we should talk about is why should people want electric vehicles? Why should they care about them? We all know that cars aren't a very American thing. People love their cars, they need their cars, they want their cars, and they want to have them convenient and reasonably priced and reliable. So talk to us a little bit, Mayor, about why we need electric vehicles, why it's important, and why people should want them.
Well, as you say, cars are so important to us as Americans. They're an important part of how our communities develop. My own hometown of South Bend, Indiana, grew up around auto manufacturing, and they're a big part of many of our lives. And there's a really important wave of technological development happening with electric vehicles. Electric vehicles are cleaner, of course. They're better for the environment. They're also a lot of fun to drive if you ever get a chance to, as more and more Americans will. They often require less maintenance. There are just fewer moving parts in an electric vehicle, so they can be less expensive to own. And making sure that America's in the lead on electric vehicles, I think, is part of how America can lead the world economically going forward. Look, our competitors, in terms of other countries, are moving in this direction. I want them to be racing to catch up with America, not the other way around. So at an individual level, if you've ever been behind the wheel of one of these things, or at a national level, it is so important for us to be paying attention to what's coming our way with electric vehicles.
Let me just say this, I agree with you. When people get to own an electric vehicle, they love them. The ride is just smooth. The first time I read an electric vehicle, I said, I feel like on a magic carpet. They're quieter as well. They're less dangerous because the center of gravity is lower. And as you mentioned, there are fewer repairs because there are fewer parts. So they're a lot cheaper to maintain. So once people become accustomed to an electric vehicle or even ride in it for the first time, they really like it. I mean, I think the problems that people worry about are obviously, will they be able to drive as long a distance without, quote, refueling or recharging, as we would now call it? Can that charging be quick and easy? And will there be charging stations anywhere? If they want to go to grandma's house, who lives in rural Illinois, will they be able to get there? And we have to answer all those questions, yes. And I think the plan we're working on together does that.
That's right. You know, this is one of the reasons why it's so important to have the electric vehicle charging infrastructure that this country needs, especially as the cost of these cars keeps coming down. You know, depending on what class of vehicle you're talking about, we're already getting close to the point where it's a savings for a customer when you consider that you're not going to have to buy all that gas for all those years to buy an electric vehicle. But you got to know it's going to be able to get you to where you're going. Now, these new vehicles, I think a lot of us, maybe our imagination about these things starts with the original electric vehicle most of us might know, which is a golf cart. We're talking about some of the highest performing cars on the market now. They're coming out with all-wheel drive. They're coming out with pickup trucks. So they're really meeting consumers where we are. And they're getting longer and longer range. But you got to make sure we've got the chargers for them. And as you know, the president has promised on his campaign to massively expand the EV charging network that we have around the country so that you never have to think twice about whether you're going to be able to get to where you're going, even if it's a long road trip.
Yeah, and I was really gratified, Mayor, that the president adopted the Clean Cars for America proposal that I had proposed a year ago, and it's gotten amazing support. And it has a lot of ramifications that affect all of us as Americans. Not only do we produce the electric cars and provide the charging stations everywhere, one by your home and then across the roads into America, but it's going to keep America preeminent as the #1 electric vehicle producer in the world. We've always been the leading car manufacturer in the world, and we've lost some ground in recent years. The Chinese and some other companies are deeply subsidizing their electric vehicle manufacturing. And if we just sit on our hands, we're going to find, as the world moves to electric vehicles, which it inevitably will because of climate change, we're not going to be driving American cars. So what our proposal does, the president's and ours, says we're going to make them here. And that's one of the reasons we've gotten great union support for our proposal, because it's going to mean more jobs, more American jobs, more good paying jobs, more union jobs here in America. And that is one of the major goals, aside from the obvious one of getting the carbon out of the air. So, it's had broad support, broader support than you'd ever think.
That's why pro-electric vehicle policies are so important. All these great ideas that are out there, whether we're talking about what the president was discussing in his campaign or the other policy options that are in front of us. This is, as you said, this is about jobs. This is about American leadership. This is about making sure that as electric vehicles are increasingly made around the world, that the best are made right here in America. And that, as you said, this is an engine of economic growth for the middle class. Again, I grew up in a town that used to be an auto town, but the car company that gave life to our city, Studebaker, they didn't make it through the 1960s because they couldn't keep up with some of the changes. This time, we got to not only be keeping up with the changes, we got to be driving those changes and challenging the rest of the world to keep up with us. And that's why your leadership and the great work that's been done to make sure that Americans understand the potential of electric vehicles is so important.
Yeah, I think it's two things. It's convincing people it's good for them, that they'll love their electric vehicle. And it's convincing America that this is something that helps our economy grow. So many people worry, are my kids going to get better jobs than I had, or are they going to not get as good a job? This kind of proposal says your kids are going to have a great future because America will once again be the shining center of auto manufacturing. We're still #1, but the others have gained on us.
That's right.
This will cause us to jump right back into the lead and have the rest of the world start buying American cars rather than so many companies selling their cars here.
That's just it. And to me, it brings out my competitive instinct a little bit because I want to see America in the lead.
You have one of those, Mayor? You have one of those competitive instincts?
Just a little, maybe. And whether we're talking about these newer companies that are forming or Detroit, some of the best known auto manufacturers in the world, all of them pulling in this direction, we've got to make sure that we're doing everything we can to support that transition, make sure America is leading the way.